If a cooking robot puts cilantro in your cake, who do you blame? The coder? The hardware team? The chef who wrote the recipe? Or the machine itself and throw it out of the window? In any automated system, we need to know who stays accountable when something goes wrong. And that can mean anything from ruining your dessert to rejecting a customer.
You shall not become a client!
Because once decisions are automated, they can feel neutral, instant and objective, but every decision still reflects the way the system was designed. Behind every output, there are rules, data, assumptions, thresholds, and people who design the whole process. And that matters even more in industries like finance, where automation is not deciding about piece of cake, but about fraud, credits, and access to services. In this episode, we're looking at AI, machine learning, and automation in decision-making. Not just how these systems make decisions, but how they are trained and explained, where the human still stays in the loop, and what responsible automation actually looks like in practice. Because automated does not mean nobody is responsible. And we wanted to hear from someone dealing with these questions every day. And that brings us to Nemika Menevse, CEO of Twisto. Twisto is buy now, pay later provider, and it makes real-time decision at the customer checkout, where customer is either accepted or rejected. How automated is this decision at Twisto?
It is indeed at that point fully automated. But before that, there are lots of parameters we are running, and in years' time or in months' time, we are reviewing, we are checking and improving. So how it happens, indeed, we have two products. One of them is BNPL at checkout, which happens really in milliseconds. We collect some information from the customer, and we also check certain, using fraud tools, telco, etc. We are also connected to some external service providers to be able to understand if the customer is a genuine customer, if the transaction is genuine, and if we can take the risk of that customer. Our other product is consumer credits. So it is a longer process where we ask for more information about our customers. So the route or the decision process for both are different. But there are lots of rules that we establish, and all these rules are set in accordance with the changing market dynamics, the information, the data we have provided in 13 years' time. So all these are happening at that point, automated. But as I said, we review them, how many customers we're approving, rejecting. Is there area that we can improve? Where sometimes, some rules are old. Now there is a new technology. AI is better. So it's always like an ongoing process, but the decision is always made, or which rules we will apply, decision is always made by humans and our senior risk or fraud managers.
How many parameters are we talking? You mentioned that there is maybe hundreds or thousands of them per each customer.
Hundreds, I may say. And it's, we have lots of digital footprint indeed. So we are looking into specifics about you. If you give us consent, we are checking your phone number, if it's a prepaid. There are lots of things, some of them maybe I cannot disclose, but at the end of the day, everything that, if you're shopping from that merchant for the first time, if you have shopped with Twisto before, so there are lots of parameters we are checking into. But things are, changing very fast, and you need to adapt to it. So you need to improve your models. You need to look if anything is outdated, or if there is anything new in the market that can help you to do better decision making. We are always in the market searching for those and trying to give the best possible service to our customers.
And where is the human in that automated chain and decision process?
What's happening is, at the beginning we are looking into which rules we should set based on the data we collect. And as I said, we are reviewing it, that there is where the human is. But if we reject the customer, our customers always have the right to ask to be reviewed again. Then that check is done manually. But we also, to make sure that what we are doing is correct, after approval or rejection, we randomly select some customers, do a manual review, to make sure that we gave the correct decision, the model worked correctly, or if there's anything improvement. So there's always a human in decision making, but also in controlling processes. Or whenever a customer asks for rate me again, these are the main points where humans touch all that process.
Is AI making the decision making better? So I understand now it's not making the decision itself, but is it providing better support to the human in the loop for the decision?
Definitely. I mean, especially if you can educate it, the more you can educate the AI, the better results you get. So the predictions, the AI is, or machine learning, you do via machine learning is quite important for you to understand, but it is always, again, following or understanding the market, what's happening, not only in Czechia, in Europe, but all over the world. So you need to combine that know-how, educate your models, so that you can improve its prediction, which can in return help you with better decision making.
You talk about responsible lending a lot. How does this convert to AI models and your automation of the processes?
That is, responsible lending is quite critical for us, and this is something we will always stick to. So it covers giving the correct information to our customers, being fair and honest, and not thinking of companies' profit against someone else's, our customers' benefits. So AI is something you educate. So how you educate, you get the results. How effort you give, you get better results. So whatever we do internally or for our customers, we want AI to reflect our values. So it is a little bit about, as I said, how you're training it. AI is just a tool that represents what we want to do and helps us to do it in a better, automated and shorter period of time indeed.
As you mentioned, some customers eventually get rejected. That's just the rule of life. How do you then explain it to them in some meaningful way? We rejected you before, and can you legally?
There are certain things that we cannot explain, especially if it is anything related to financial crime suspicion. There are certain things that we are not allowed to share for sure. But as I said, in certain positions we are not rejecting, but we need some additional information about the customer. But if we are rejecting it and if customer is asking for a review, we do it. And if it is something that we can disclose, then if the customer is asking and we are sharing it. So transparency is quite important, but as I said, as a regulated company, we also need to comply with certain rules in doing that.
How do you make sure that the models that you're training are not unbiased, that they are fair to all customers?
It is again how we train it at the beginning, but this is like, you always need to keep an eye on it. So I think we are trying to educate, train AI or our models unbiasedly, but still you need to always check the results if it is performing as you want. And if there is anything you need to adjust, you need to do it. I mean, AI can make mistakes. So the more you train, the more you look into it, the more you invest, definitely the results are better. So we are trying to do it in a very fair and objective way. But we are always, as I said, reviewing, monitoring and improving whenever we need the necessity to do so.
Does it happen that people who got rejected, for example, come to you and say the model is biased and therefore I was not?
We didn't ever hear about it. They are more trying to understand what the reason is and if there's anything they can improve, but it's not like you made an automated decision, your model is not working properly. But also it's another, everything the customers tell you is enormously important. So if the customer is asking why they were rejected, you need to specifically look into those cases to see if there's anything to improve. So we really listen to our customers. We try to listen to our customers very well. But I don't think the consumers or the people really know what is happening behind the scenes. At least I couldn't come across with that question, and I'm very much interested in customer feedbacks. So most probably lots of the people are not, really do not know where we are using what processes that may be related to this.
You mentioned that you have still a lot of human touch in the decision-making process that you're doing. But also you said that AI is helping currently quite a lot and it's making the process better and more smooth. Do you think that we will have more of AI in the decision-making process, or will the human still be there as much as it is now?
I think it will depend on the situation, but for a while, especially if you are doing something that is directly touching the consumer, and if it's that heavily regulated, I don't think we will always be able to leave it all to AI or machines. So there will always be, to some extent, human touch. Maybe the level will change, but I think, at least for me, for a foreseeable future, we will always have the human touch, but it may depend on the business you are making. But if you're a consumer credit company, I think we will always have it.
Twisto recently informed about the amount of frauds that we have in Czechia. It's reaching far beyond 2 billion Czech crowns. Frauds and criminals are getting better and better. How do you keep up with them?
Unfortunately, the criminals are trying always to be one step further. Sometimes, the industry is learning afterwards. I mean, you come across with a fraud and then you say, okay, this is a new type of fraud. So there are lots of tools. I mean, again, people, our machines, everything, we have lots of digital footprint. And it also depends on the type of the fraud. But definitely AI and machine learning is helping. Especially, in credits it's different, in money transfer it's different. First, you really need to be in the market, listen, hear. There are lots of very useful conferences, seminars, how you can improve yourself. So I think educating yourself, your team being trained, open-minded, not only limited to a market, but understanding what's happening in the rest of the world. This is critical. Using good tools, looking at the performance of your tools, this is also critical. Cybersecurity, etc. It has lots of dimensions, but it's all about training yourself and using the good tools. We are working with very good fraud tools, anti-fraud tools, but it's also rapidly changing.
Not to give any criminals any manuals, but what are some recurring red flags that you can say, okay, this looks like fraud?
It depends on indeed the transactionist type. If a fraudster has by any chance the cards and trying to do fraud, the regulation also protects a lot. So you see, for example, continuous attempt of wrong pins. That may be, there is a limitation to it for sure. So the type of the transactions they are trying, or from a certain area continuously from some devices or IPs. There are lots of things. So we have, for example, a very good internal blacklist that we have established in 13 years' time. So it is, I do not want to, very openly talk about it as well, but it depends on the type of the fraud being tried. And you in time see, okay, that may be fraudulent, and you see the red flags and start to take actions accordingly. But sometimes, as I did, if it's a new type of fraud, then you may be aware of it afterwards. I'm not saying it for Twisto, but from the market. Yeah.
In decision making, where is the line of what should be decided by the system and by the human? We already touched on the topic of critical decisions being always in hands of people, but maybe in the less critical client-facing cases or internal cases, is this shifting more towards the AI?
No, I cannot say it this way, but maybe I can a little bit explain about how we are using AI in company in general. So first of all, to ease our lives, even, I'm an AI lover and I benefit from AI a lot, even though most probably I'm the oldest person in the company. But for example, my AI agent is educated to give me the news about the industry and the competitors every morning. I cannot, search all the newspapers. So for example, at the end of the day, the AI agent gives me information about Czech, Poland, UK, and Turkish economy and highlight. This is, instead of searching lots of things, you read it and it understood me. It's giving me a very good executive summary. And we are doing it, for understanding the industry reports. There are lots of great reports, but sometimes you do not have time to read it. But Gemini can help you to turn it into a podcast and you can listen while you're walking. So this is the basic part of it. I'm not a technological person and I don't understand anything about code, but I have my AI, read-only access to code. I can ask everything and my AI can explain me what we can improve. So now when we are discussing something with product or delivery teams, I can understand better if it's really going to take too long time or if it is a easier thing. So even I'm not a technical person, I started understanding or learning a little bit about how everything is working. So this is the simplest way to use it for sure. Now we also hired an AI engineer specific to help us internally, but also to help us with our customer relations. So we are now working on an internal AI chatbot that has access to our documents. So instead of asking someone else or getting lost in a document, it's like, ChatGPT version of Twisto. We will just ask and, it will tell us how things work. This can help us a lot with the onboarding of the newcomers. This part is, to make our lives easier on a daily basis. The other part is automation. There are lots of manual processes. For example, sometimes if the customer is transferring us the money without the correct variable, we need to manually match it. So AI also helps us with such things, reading an invoice, when we're going to finance it, etc. So that automation part, I think, is quite valuable because then we can use our people, and Twisto is a growing company. We are doing new products, and our colleagues knowing Twisto is quite important for us. So as we automate, it's not like getting these people out of Twisto, but benefiting from our colleagues in other fields because we are growing. So that automation part is another field we are using it. The other one is prediction. So there are certain signals that you may lose a customer. It is giving signals. Maybe you cannot understand it with your eyes as a human, or it may be very difficult among thousands of records to see which customer is using you less, which customer is reaching out to you to explain you about their complaint. So when you put that, the AI can help you with predicting the potential. It doesn't say you're going to lose that customer, but it is saying there is a risk that you may lose this customer. So you can take action before that happens. The same goes for defaults. We are a consumer credit company and we want to protect our money. We do not want to lose money, but we want our customers to have the correct conditions to pay it back. We do not want to stress them as well. So AI can help you looking at the past behavior of various customers if there is a risk that this customer may face issues in the upcoming months. So this helps us to reach out to them to offer other solutions if they are facing any difficulty. So predictions that you cannot do with your eyes, AI can be very helpful. But at the end of the day, looking at data, looking at those predictions, approving a customer, rejecting a customer, you can always establish your correct customer strategy, not to lose your customers, to be more beneficial. This is, I think, the critical part. But again, here, the decision is currently at our senior team. Okay, there is a risk this can happen. What will we offer those customers not to lose them? So that doesn't come from the AI. But AI is shedding a light on the data for us to understand that millions of data in a better way.
As a smart tool, you worked with big banks and big banks. Now you work in still big but way smaller fintech. Do you think that is helping you with the fast AI implementation? Because the banks tend to be slower, more conservative.
Yeah, and especially I was working in corporate banking, so you work with very few number of customers, corporate customers, and things do not change that much. And so it is a totally different world. It is for sure. I know from the Turkish banks or UK banks, they're also using some AIs, but I think it is much more easy to do it in companies like us because, you know, we're more agile, we can. For sure, we are applying with all the laws, AI Act, etc. But at the end of the day, we are a smaller company and we can understand the risk, decide on it. As a small group of managers, it is much more easy. And I think it also helps, and it's also good that our team is very much keen on understanding how we can get the best out of it. So we are all in it. This is also helping. You can still be a small company, but if people are not interested or if they do not understand the benefit in it, understanding the benefit is good, but you also need to understand the risks, assess the risks and manage those risks as well. So I think we are quite good in it in terms of industry, but in terms of the mindset of our team.
You listed many areas where AI is now used in your company, which is great. What is the future of AI in the company? Which are the areas that AI is not yet good at, or you're looking forward to be covered with AI?
For example, we are developing certain tools for our engineers to decrease the number of bugs, for example. But again, still, it is always finally signed off by people. You really need to make sure the AI is working properly. So there are lots of areas that we know we can use, but it's again, you know, up to the capacities as well. This is also, it's like a kid that you need to raise with patience. So I think we will cover lots of things, but in the meantime, lots of things will change. Customer habits will change, you know, customer needs, merchants needs, everything will change. So I think it will always be using AI in different areas, but also improving the way we use AI in the same areas. This will also be always on our agenda.
This is a good reminder that AI is not just about chatbots or agents. It also includes highly structured, deterministic decision systems like the ones Twisto uses behind the scenes. Twisto's AI has been learning and improving for 13 years. It checks hundreds of things about each customer in milliseconds. Fraud signals, payment history, risk factors. It's gotten very good at it, but at the end of the day, it's people who decide what the AI should look for. People who review whether it's working, and people who change the rules when something needs fixing. The AI does the heavy lifting, but humans are still in charge. There's one more thing, explainability. When your AI rejects a customer, can you explain why in a way they can actually understand? Can you point to the reasons, the decisioning behind the outcome, or explain why the system asks for more information? Nemika says they try to be transparent when they can, and that some cases are reviewed or supplemented with additional customer information. But there are limits of what they can disclose, and as regulation tightens, the algorithm decided is no longer an acceptable answer. When it comes to fraud, and even though companies hate to admit that, criminals are sometimes ahead, and the industry catches up after the fact. But what gives Twisto a real edge is their collected data. Everyone has access to the same AI tools. Not everyone has unique data built up over years. That's what sets them apart. AI should reflect the company's values. That's what Nemika said. If your AI makes unfair calls or upsets customers, that is usually not just an AI problem. It learned from your data, your rules, and your priorities. In lending, there's always pressure to approve more people and earn more money. AI can optimize for that very well, but that is the danger. If you give it only that goal, it may follow it too perfectly. That is why humans and company values still have to set the direction.